I'll just give a very brief introduction. What the presentation includes is an overview of what the city's trends are right now and where we expect them to go, a little bit about the bond package itself, and then we get into all the different CIP categories, which include drainage, transportation, facilities, and public safety. So we'll go ahead and skip to public safety for now.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I'll keep it short and sweet so y'all can get on with official business. Curtis Campbell, I hadn't got to meet you guys. Pleasure to be here. Try to inform you as best I can. The public safety for this one, this is more going to be focused on the fire department's goals of that ISO 1, getting the insurance service offices rating 1. Granted, there's a lot of steps, but this is kind of the first one. And when we look at it, we had a consultant do fire station location studies to see where in the city we need our fire stations located to make sure that our response times are where they're supposed to be. To meet that goal, 5-minute response time, that's something we're moving towards. I don't know if you can read that up there. The screens are kind of small. You have the handout maybe in front of you that will give you some of the statistics that we follow in here. Currently, meeting our 5-minute response time from our stations where they're located in the city, we do it 34% of the time. I know that's not a great number. Again, it's a goal. We're striving to get closer, and that's where that consultant come in and gave us a map. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it to where you're going to be able to see the map either. Can you click it for me down there? There we go. So in the fire station location study, there was 2 additional fire stations that were identified. One in the ETJ, that's Waters Lake Boulevard and Scanlon Trace, and the other at Lake Olympia Parkway and Village Brook Drive. One is currently under construction now, that's outside the city being funded through the MUD. And then the one that we're looking at for this bond package is fire station number 6. That would be Lake Olympia Parkway and Village Brook Drive. That's a general area. That's not a set area. That's the location. The circles up there, they indicate a 1.5-mile radius. So as you can see where they don't touch between the beige and the brown, that's the area there as you go down Lake Olympia Parkway, where you see that there's a little bit of a hole. And on the right-hand side, you see the big green district map. That's one now that we're trying to reduce down. And this station, putting the station where the consultant said it would go, would cut that green district, that's the largest district we have right now, down significantly. And when you cut that down, it reduces response times as well. Something I'll kind of go to, we did this backwards. Usually we have transportation and drainage and everything else in there. And this ties into the projects Valerie's going to talk about as well, because when we talk about mobility and traffic, that directly reflects response times as well. You guys get stuck in traffic just like anybody else, and you can imagine being in a fire truck stuck in the same traffic. Granted, folks get out of the way, but it still increases our response time. We have another. If we can go to the next slide, Valerie, the clicker's not working. Go back one. Here, these are some examples for response times. If we put this station where they're saying the station should go, and it's really hard to see, but I can kind of give you some examples. Misty Hollow at Lake Olympia, pretty common one. The current response time from that green block where you're going to get your fire truck that's assigned to that address now is 5 minutes and 15 seconds. The new station location is pretty much right there, and that general area would reduce it to just underneath a minute. There's several on this slide. This presentation is also available on our website. You can click in additional resources on the bond tab. This whole presentation is in there, and you can kind of see this stuff a little bit closer. The package for this one is $5 million for the fire station. That will include the property, the design, the construction, and a fire truck with equipment. The study does recommend a Quint fire truck, and a Quint fire truck it simply means 5. It's a regular fire engine. It has everything, including an aerial ladder on top. So it carries water, hose, a pump, ground ladders, and an aerial ladder on top. So that gives us additional credits when we look at the ISO rating. And that ISO rating, if you're not real familiar with it, it's how directly, we get a property protection classification out of that, which we're currently a 3. What that does is set your insurance rates, both residentially and commercially. So the more we improve, the better the rates are for the citizens and the better service we can provide. This station, obviously, when we get into these, this is a $40 million total bond package over 8 to 10 years, and it would have to be approved by council for this to even come up to become an expenditure. So the likelihood of this, it's still a few years down the road, design and construction, or design and location, securing land, those things could happen sooner, but before it would be operational, this would be several years down the road. We just want to throw that caveat out there too. That's pretty much the total thing for the public safety proposition in this bond referendum. If y'all have any questions for me, I can answer them.
So what's the reason for it being so far out from actually being operational? I mean,
The first thing has to happen is this gets identified by, Valerie's going to explain how the Citizen Exploratory Committee comes up with the items that they want to put in this bond package, how that works. That gets voted in city council. It gets to go to be a vote. If the electorate goes to approve this, specifically public safety, then this project has to come before council and get approval to move forward. And when council would grant that approval, when they would deem it necessary, is when it would become a capital improvement project and we could go forward with design, construction, and staffing as well.
And I can touch on that more.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No other questions? That was quick and painless. Y'all are ready to go. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, I guess I'll stay here. All right. So thank you, Curtis, for that.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned earlier, city trends. Also, Curtis mentioned the Bond Exploratory Committee. You may be familiar with that process that we went through for the whole year, where council appointed the members to the committee, staff expressed the different needs throughout the city, and they took into consideration these types of statistics where we took a look at what the city looks like now and where we expect to be in the future. So you can see here that the population we expect to continue to grow. And that'll have an impact. Additional people means additional cars on the road, extra demands for services, and extra wear and tear on those roads, for example, not to mention even the mobility aspect. So those are some considerations as we go through this process and defining what the next bond referendum should include. Another one is looking at the different generations. One thing to take a look at is how our younger generations are coming up and what are they going to be looking for in the future. They tend to show a desire to have more walkable places to live. They want to be able to live closer to where they work, for example. They're not going to have, we think, it's a possibility that they're not going to have as much of a desire to own automobiles and maybe even not live in that suburban community. So that's something else that we want to take into consideration. Looking at our age groups, we can see the older population's increasing, the younger population increasing somewhat, but the mid-age decreasing a little bit. What all of this tells us when we look at it together, especially with this particular map, all the purple areas is stuff that's already been built out. That land has already been developed. And what we see is that as we do build out and all the available land is constructed on, we're going to start moving more to maintenance type activities rather than brand new projects. So as that occurs, our ideas are going to be shifting more towards those maintenance dollars. This map shows you the ages of the subdivisions throughout the city. This is significant to us in the sense that we started in the 1950s, and roadways, for example, have a typical service life of the 30-ish range. So we have some old subdivisions with some old streets. There's a lot of need for removal and replacement, a lot of repairs in those areas. So you'll see that when we get to the roadway section, that a lot of those needs are focused in these areas, the northern sections of town where they're older, and you'll see less of a need further south where the subdivisions are significantly younger. So to answer your question from earlier about why the fire station may be a few years out, one thing we took a look at is how much debt can we sell and not increase the tax rate. So idea is $40 million is what we can look at and sell over a course of about 10 years in order to not raise the tax rate. And so that assumes a certain growth rate as well. So what we're looking at is holding it at 40 million. And if we get that growth rate to maintain, or maybe even improve, we won't have to raise the taxes in order to perform these projects. Do you have any questions on this section before I move on? Some of the different plans that we propose to the Bond Exploratory Committee include the comprehensive plan, different master drainage plans, parks and trails, transportation, and these are the things that identify the need throughout the city, whether it be different drainage improvements, different roadways, or et cetera, et cetera. For drainage, the city's philosophy is to make sure that, of course, we want to prevent structure flooding, but also to maintain one lane passable on our major thoroughfares. So that's one goal that we have in mind when we look at our potential drainage projects. Willow Waterhole is the area that was selected by the Bond Exploratory Committee to focus on. And this area is north of Highway 90A in the Beltway area. You might recall a lot of the Beltway Crossing and Fondren Park are up in those areas. It's also a fast-growing area. So these drainage improvements will be necessary as we continue to grow to keep potential flooding from occurring and getting worse. So for drainage, we're proposing $6.5 million to make various improvements throughout that watershed. In transportation, mobility is our goal. Of course, safety comes first, but in addition to that, we want to reduce congestion and travel time. And like Curtis mentioned, those things can impact their response time if the roads are congested and you can't move anywhere. We're proposing $8.2 million to utilize towards the Fort Bend County Mobility Bond Program. We've proposed the projects that you see here, 2 Glen Lakes Bridges, Independence Segment 1 and 2, and I'll go into these in a little more detail, Staffordshire and Knight Road. These funds would be matching funds to that bond program. Glen Lakes Bridge over Oyster Creek, we're proposing $600,000 to match the County Mobility Fund. Now, this bridge is over the Oyster Creek area, and then, oops, I went too, oh, sorry. I guess I don't have a picture in here for the other one. Okay, so the next one, the other bridge is a little bit further to the east over that tributary that comes off of Oyster Creek. And it's the same construction cost. For Independence, you can see in the map here, this is to realign Independence up to Independence. So I guess realign Court and then call it Independence all the way through. And then the second phase is to construct the other 2 lanes that you see out there.
Could you go back 1 second to Independence? Independence will come across, will it connect to Court at Waterfall Drive?
Good question, no.
Good.
Yes, we will cul-de-sac that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This second section, you might have noticed there's already another bridge out there that we don't use.
Right.
So this project would propose to utilize that other bridge and complete that major east-west thoroughfare. This would give us a major east-west thoroughfare that would be passable in a 100-year event. As you know, Cartwright has a tendency to not be. So that's one benefit we would get out of that. Staffordshire. Stafford has it under construction right now, just north of Scanlon. This project would take the same improvements south all the way down to Court. This would complete a more regional view of that roadway. Stafford's doing it up to Beltway 8, so that would be a major regional connection. So that's always important to us. Knight Road. Coming off the toll road going south to McKeever, we'd complete that connection there. We think that would be a reliever to Sienna Parkway. We expect it could divert as many as 6,000 cars off Sienna Parkway. It's already operating at capacity, so that would be a huge help to them down there. And then we come to our more repair and replacement. You might be familiar with our what we call our PMMP. That's where we do a pavement evaluation of the city streets and the sidewalks, and we get assigned condition rating to each of the street segments. And what you see here, all the red areas, are those that score below a 50, and anything below a 50 is what we consider to be worthy of replacement. And that number is determined by the city council. I'll back up real quick. The 8.8 million is intended to go towards the red lines. So the way we would approach it, we're looking at starting with the lowest condition index numbers and starting from there and going down the list. And we have shown to council a list of about 10 roadways that we think we could probably get done with the 8.8 million. And then of course, this 8.8 million would be in conjunction with the normal funding we have in the PMMP. We spend just under $700,000 a year on the PMMP, and that's pavement maintenance and repair throughout the city.
What percentage of that is subcontracted and what percentage is in-house?
Oh, that's a really good question. We do have multiple contracts. We have like a street raising. We have a contractor that focuses more on the panel replacements, the more localized replacements versus like a big CIP project. We have multiple contractors for all that. I would say a bigger portion of that now is contracted out. If Sharon was here, I think she would tell you that they're able to get a lot more done that way.
So the figure was based on total number of square feet on the numbers that you have from your contractors?
Yeah, it could, depending on the type of work being done, that unit changes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do know that we've gotten a lot better at spending that $700,000 since we started using the contractors. Previously, before we started using them, we struggled to spend all that money every year.
So like on the Scanlon Road, Stafford did it with all new utilities,
Well,
all
that's-
concrete.
And that I would consider that to be a full-blown CIP project. That's a multi-million-dollar project versus doing localized repairs.
Right.
Yeah.
But like when you're doing a repair and the existing is concrete, or let's say asphalt, but part of the projection is to eventually replace it. Does
Yeah,
that fall
and that's
into the-
something that we would take into consideration. So for example, on the evaluation, if we have a roadway that has multiple segments that may not fall under the 50, but maybe it's close, we might pay particular attention to that one and consider grouping all of those together and doing that as a major replacement instead of continually putting in the maintenance dollars.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be
So-
quiet now.
And it can be on a case-by-case basis. So it can also depend on the function of the roadway. If it's more of a major collector versus a small localized neighborhood street, that could have an impact on how quickly we're able to go in and make those types of repairs.
Thank you.
Oop, I get the sidewalks, 3.3 million. We see a lot of activity on this map here. We have a long way to go. The need is closer to 6, 8, I'm sorry, I don't remember that exactly. The need's greater than what we see here, but we think this is a good starting point. Start putting a dent into that. This 3.3 million would be in addition to our normal maintenance dollars. So we think this would be a good starting point.
So is that for replacement or is that repairs and replacement?
All the above. And one thing I do want to mention, if we do go in and replace a roadway, say for example, Turtle Creek is going to be one of the next ones that we do.
Sidewalks though?
We do the sidewalks while we're there.
Okay.
So we would not spend these replacement dollars on that. That would come out of the project itself. Beautification is another thing that we were looking at. We have some entrance monuments that have the old city logo on them. We've put in some medians along a couple of the roadways. Highway 6, fortunately enough, the resident MUDs and other local organizations have stepped up. I think the Sienna Management District has stepped up and added landscaping in many sections along Highway 6. We would propose using this funding to help fill in those gaps, hopefully do some on Texas Parkway as well, since we just put medians there, and do a couple monuments where we can. So this is a summary of the transportation, because it's broken down into different sections here. On the bond referendum, you'll just see the $22.8 million for transportation. For facilities, we're planning on doing a study that'll take a look at what we have, what we need, and what to do about it, whether that means expanding on site somehow, or maybe utilizing more satellite-type facilities. So we're looking at about $3 million to really take a good look at that and possibly make some improvements based off of it. At City Hall here, the building's kind of old. It's over 30 years. And that's technically beyond its service life, so it needs some TLC very badly. This building, planning, and then the community center next door all need new roofs. So the $2.7 million is to go towards the roofs, and then you may have noticed some of the pavers around the building are very uneven. We'd like to address those and make those better. So that brings us to the end. This is a summary of what the bond referendum looks like. Drainage is $6.5 million, fire station $5 million, facilities $5.7, and transportation $22.8. Have any other questions? Anything else that I haven't addressed?
Well done.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the meeting to order and elect you as the chairman.
The meeting is called to order. Our first order of business is nomination of a temporary chairman.
I nominate Mr. Haynes.
I second.
Okay? Vote. Any other nominations?
No.
Okay. You voting for yourself?
Am I voting for myself?
Yes.
I guess.
You better, because that may delay.
I'm done.
So how did I draw the short straw?
Take a vote
right?
on the motion.
Call to order.
You weren't here when we.
Oh, okay. Well, so we already voted on the motion, right?
Yep.
She recorded the vote.
Yep.
Yeah. You're it.
So we'll start the
So
meeting.
moved. All right. The April 9th, 2014 Planning and Zoning Commission is hereby called to order. We have a quorum, I guess, and the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion with approval.
Get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Reports. Reports of the commissioner. Planning Zoning Commissioner's not here, the chairman's not here, so he doesn't have a report. Any other commissioners have any reports? Nope. Moving on, staff reports. Director of Development Services.
Excuse me, the first report would be that our chair is still in the hospital, improving, but still in the hospital, and don't know when he'll be out. That's about the extent of my report. Glad we have a quorum here tonight so we can move through the agenda.
Thank you. Planning representative?
No comments.
Thank you. Public Works?
No
Thank
comment.
you. And we covered the bond election report already. So moving on, item number 5, public comment. If there anybody in the audience would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight, you may do so at this time. The commission will not comment or discuss any of the items with you, as we are not allowed to by law. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to item number 6, plats, the consent agenda. Item 1, consideration of preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Destrehan, sections 5 through 9. Item 2, consideration of approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Parkway Section 1 street dedication. Item 3, consideration approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Springs Boulevard East Phase 2 street dedication. Item 4, consideration of approval for a preliminary plat for Avalon at Sienna Collector Road A and C street dedication.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
All those in favor? Okay. Item B, public hearing, consideration of a replat for Gessner Development LLC. Consider approval of final report for Gessner Development LLC.
This is a replat, and it actually came before the commission in January, was conditionally approved, and then the applicant did meet all of staff's comments, and so it was fully approved. However, after all of that, the property owner determined that they wanted to split the parcel into 3 reserves as opposed to 2 as originally seen. So that is what's before you tonight, is to consider the further subdivision of the 1 reserve now into 3 reserves. And so staff does recommend conditional approval based on the comments that are reflected in the report.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion?
All they're doing is just adding another plat, I mean, they're just dividing it up from where it was.
Right, and the area would be A and B. A and B previously was
Right.
reflected as 1 new reserve on the plat that you saw in January. And so they're further subdividing that to create 2 separate reserves.
Is it a public hearing, or is it just consideration?
Oh, is it a public hearing?
Public hearing.
All right. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this item?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I second it.
All those in favor? So moved. Now I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Make a motion that we send this to city council with a positive recommendation.
Okay. Second.
I second.
Well, not to council, it's a plat.
It's just the plat, just approval.
Can I say council, just to say council?
I'm sure the applicant wants it.
Trying to stump me. Can we start over?
We can start over.
We need a do-over, right, a mulligan, right?
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right. Section 7, zoning map amendments, none. Section 8, zoning text amendments. Number A, security devices in non-residential areas, zoning text amendments. Public hearing to receive comment for or against amendments to the city zoning ordinance related to the use of security devices in non-residential areas. So,
Let me start with what, to make it real interesting, this is simply a public hearing. Staff at this point has not developed a plan or projections for proposed regulations at this point. If there are members of the public who would like to comment on regulating security devices, burglar bars, other things on buildings, opportunity for them to speak. The staff does not have a report on that at this time. We'll bring it back to you when we have developed one. We published the public hearing, and we were unable to develop something to bring forward to you, so we're going to go forward with the public hearing and get that out of the way.
so did we have any interest from the public at this point? I mean, has there been, other than obviously in the council chambers, but has there been any discussion in the,
We have not heard from the public, and we have not sought input from the public independent of the publication in the paper.
okay. As this is a public hearing, is there anybody in the audience that wants to give any input or feedback on this particular item? Seeing none,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
get a second, please. Second. All in favor? Okay. And that's all we need to do on that one, right?
That is all.
Okay.
Kind of public hearing I like.
A little cynical today, aren't we?
Just something to do with this chair. I like being at the end of the horseshoe.
Okay, 8B, water and wastewater treatment and disposal system regulations. Discuss objectives for possible amendments to the zoning ordinance related to the use of private water and wastewater treatment and disposal systems. Item 2, direct staff to call a public hearing for consideration of a preliminary report.
As,
Floor is yours.
thank you. As you recall, recently, we've had the opportunity, not too frequently, but most recently, the Durham Tract. Understand that the senior family is attempting to sell a balance of that tract, and we're likely to see a similar request again on that because there simply aren't utilities in that area. And in the past, we've had to deal with lots and established subdivisions out south of Highway 6 where they don't have access to utilities. A church, recently we dealt with that one, where people come in and ask for PDs. When the Durham Tract was working its way through City Council, a council member made a wise observation that perhaps this should be a decision of the utility folks here at the city now that we're developing a utility department and not a planning and zoning decision. So the suggestion is look at taking the regulation of utilities and who's required to have utilities and not, put that in the utilities chapter of the Code of Ordinances, take it out of the zoning ordinance where we deal with land use, how the land's used, not whether or not it has utilities to it. Certainly, it's an important factor that if it can't be served, then they need to reconsider, and we need to consider how the land will be used and whether or not it should be zoned in the way that's requested or should be rezoned. But the decision of whether or not to allow private utilities, private septic system, as opposed to requiring the creation of a MUD or annexation by a MUD or extension of city service lines to the property, should more logically reside in the Utilities Department. For your thoughts and discussion and consideration.
So is the sequencing of the activities going to work out for that? I mean, would the utilities look at this prior to it coming for consideration in general?
We can arrange for that, yes.
Because
We
I
can
mean,
make
I
that
would,
part of the
I would
zoning
say that would
process.
be your point of evaluation as to whether or not the project is feasible, right?
The way we handle every rezoning now is we have the pre-development meeting. Public Works joins us, joins Development Services and our building officials and our fire marshal in reviewing the proposed plans. It's a simple step to include Robert Upton, our utilities engineer now, or other members of the staff as it grows, so that they can evaluate that at the time that the development is proposed and find the appropriate solution. So it will work in neatly with what we're doing, as opposed to making people go through the 3 to 4 month process of putting together a PD when all they want is a private well and septic tank at their new home.
So you can just look at everything as a whole at that time, right?
That's what we try to do now.
Okay.
Where does the equation of supplying fire protection come in with utilities? I mean, the math formula of how much does it cost to run water to these new subdivisions? How much does it cost to put a firehouse close by so we can have the reaction time? They have to send a truck if there's no water, or if it's well water.
And what kind of truck are they going to send and where are they going to access water?
Right. Does that
It's-
come into the equation?
It does. When fire department's looking at it, people are advised of that. And in particular, in a commercial setting, we're going to look at that more closely. Almost every commercial setting, I'm going to peer over my shoulder at Jennifer, who's busy doing other things right now. Got her attention. In a commercial setting, we're very strict on where the fire hydrants are going to be. I don't know of very many commercial, except perhaps the church that came before us recently. But there is a water line in front of that property. So fire's not an issue there. But where the fire hydrants are, the reach of the fire hose, they cannot be more than 200 feet hose reach from any location where the truck can be parked. And we watch all that. Yeah. The amazing detail you learn working for a city and things that nobody really wants to know.
Right.
I almost know the slope you have to have on wastewater lines so that they work properly too. I've almost got that percentage down now.
1/8
But,
inch per 10
Yeah,
foot.
those things are considered. Residential, we're not as strict on that. I think the risk on residential looks at the person who's decided to make the investment, they're aware of that risk, and they're not really endangering members of the public because it's personal guests that come to that home or within that home. But a commercial business, all kinds of people are invited in, and we're far more concerned about their safety, and other people work there. We're concerned about that safety, and generally the buildings are bigger. So it gets a lot more attention. And the
Well,
codes
I
are
was
stricter.
curious because the chief talked about the rating and getting that higher rating. Is part of that rating system take into consideration the fact that you have water?
Yes.
Where you're servicing?
Yes.
So
But-
does that come
But
into?
the goal is 90%, so,
Right.
we're not gonna have 10% of the city that's gonna be affected by that, more than likely, right?
Okay, that answers the question.
Just to expand that thought a little bit, I found out the other day that the ISO people are coming to visit our building department too, because it's how the codes are applied and how the qualifications of our inspectors and how we train them and the certifications they have. And that factors into the ISO rating also. It's not just the fire department. As Valerie said and Curtis said, the roadways will factor in because that's response times they look at. But how well we have things built, which buildings we require to be sprinkled. All of those factor into the ISO rating. So all of your insurance rates rise and fall on how well we do our jobs, how well we train, and which codes we adopt.
Well, an individual that didn't have access to water would probably be affected with his personal insurance rates.
It significantly affects having lived away from a fire plug. It does run up your insurance rates quite a bit.
Any other discussion, comments? Can I get a motion? Item 2.
How should the motion be made?
Just-
Direct staff to call the
Okay,
schedule.
okay, we'll direct staff to call a public hearing, I make the motion. Okay.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor? And we have nothing under number 9, or do we? Oh, we do, I guess, that's right. Wasn't a piece of paper in there for it. Was it?
Actually, number 8 was after number 9. I couldn't find number 8 until I
Oh,
found it
that's
at
why I
the
couldn't
end.
find it in my. Okay.
It
Item
appears-
number 9.
It appears I put it at the wrong
Parkland
place.
dedication for Sienna South, consider adoption of a recommendation to City Council regarding a parkland dedication proposal for Sienna South. Still got my out of order. There it is. Got it, it looked like a plat.
Evening. Hi, my name is Mead Mitchell. I'm with TVG. We're the landscape architects and planners for the Sienna South. And Bill Odell would normally be here, but I'm filling in for him. He's out of town. Did you want to go into this? You want me to do?
Why don't we do it like
You
we
gave
did
a
before?
you gave a great presentation last.
I faked it at the park board last week. In the 8th Amendment to the Sienna Joint Development Agreement, the city and the developer Hillwood then, it's no longer Hillwood, it's now Johnson Development, had proposed the development or dedication of approximately 70 acres of parkland. I think we probably went over this when we talked about the amendment, down on the river. Let me steal that from you real quickly. No, it's easier for me to do this. I'm working here. I understand paper. I don't understand computers. you can see there's parkland, approximately 70 acres, which is relatively consistent with the 6,500 or so homes that they intend to develop in Sienna South, or the Hillwood development area. The 70 acres is, as you can see, adjacent to the river and extends back. They have set aside these 70 acres, the plan in it. Here's where everything changes. We're in the process of change. You may not be aware of this. I guess I'm informing everyone tonight. Parks Board has approved the location of the 70 acres. We're asking you to approve the location of the 70 acres. City Council will approve the location of the 70 acres, and it will then, staff will be authorized to accept and monitor the dedication of the acreage based upon the final plats, and we keep track of it. The development agreement says they must dedicate the acreage based upon each final plat that's approved. This may be changing. Hillwood was insistent upon that. Sienna Johnson has raised the question of, we have to send a surveyor out there and survey off 3.5 acres, 5 acres, 4.3 acres, and all this, and make sure we keep it all aligned and there's no strips and gores and omissions here and there. But we're going to do it within the 70 acres. Right now, I think the plan will change so that title will remain with the developer until significantly it's developed, they want to convey it, or the city says, we need title to the land, we need to do something with it now, at which point they'll go in and subdivide it. But it saves them the surveying. Technically, they have, under the terms of the agreement, they have to do it per final plat. It's incumbent, I've committed to the Parks Board, I'll commit to you, and I'll commit to City Council. It will be incumbent upon the Development Services Department to keep track and make sure the parkland is being segregated and identified as the plats are coming in, so we will know what it's going to do. We're insisting that the first tract they're promising to us has to be on the river, and then everything else has to touch that one, because we want this parkland to touch the river. As you can see from the plat, it will touch the river. The history on this is really interesting. We were able to go back and find the 2001 Brazos River Parkland Master Plan. And you probably recall, we have land where the center part of Sienna dedicated land adjacent to their recreation area that's on the river. I think we have 57 acres there. Right about where that circle is. The 70 acres I was showing you is right about where this circle is, where in 2001 they identified roughly where that land would be. Further up, you can see the Riverstone dedication of parkland. Ultimately, from the Sienna recreation area, Camp Sienna, is that the right term?
Yes.
All the way down between the levee and the river is going to be parkland. Frankly, it's valueless to the developer. It has incredible value to the people who will live there, because it will be given to the LID or to the city, and it will be one continuous area of park all along the river. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset for Missouri City as time goes on. On top of it, the development in Sienna South will continue to have the neighborhood parks that we're familiar with in the center part of Sienna and the northern part of Sienna, in the residential areas. They'll have the area parks where the residents will be able to go. It'll be private parkland. Those of us who don't live in Sienna won't be welcome there. But those people that do live in Sienna will be able to use it. Private parkland that will be in excess of, if they were tracking it the way we normally do in subdivisions, it will be, although it will be encumbered land, but it'll be in excess of what their 50% would be for that. Plus, we get 70 acres, which is the full allotment under the ordinance for private park, for public parkland. And no, there's no encumbrance limitation, even though it is in the floodplain, because frankly, as I explained to the park board, if the parkland is not suitable as parkland, we tell them, no, thank you, find us a better piece of land. Larry has been out, Larry Foos, our Parks Director, and Randy have been out to they have walked the land. They have driven out there, they have walked on the land. Don't recommend you drive out there, understand there's a really rickety bridge you have to cross, but it's generally sloping, gently sloping pasture land until you get right by the river, then it's wooded and forested. It's been explained that the water is about 5 feet below the average level of the land there, so it's easy access to the river. And we believe it'll be an excellent piece of property for the city to have.
So if I remember, wasn't there something going further north even of Riverstone? A long time ago, when we had this discussion.
There is, and
Was it something with Sugarland, wasn't it?
it ties to Sugarland.
Okay, yeah.
The plan goes all the way up to Richmond and Rosenberg
Okay,
on the
yeah.
river. And I think the state, if I'm not mistaken, the state has a great interest. And TBG's been involved in the state plan. And what really stands in my mind is the mayor's comments about the paddling trail that was proposed. And he suggested it was a place for bad children to be disciplined. Kind of hard to forget that. But obviously, it's going to be great access for water activity and canoes and the like. And the plan is to take it where you can put your canoe in or kayak in Richmond and have stops every, 5 or 6 miles as you go down. This would be one of the stops and ultimately go down at least as far as Brazos Bend. So it's a major plan, and that this will be a central part of it. Central in more ways than one. We'll be in the middle of it. And the ecotourism, the waterborne tourism that we can get from this, I think will be tremendous.
And reiterate, he covered basically everything I can say, but reiterate what Gary had said. This will, adjacent to the 70 acres on either side, is going to be parkland that the developer's going to develop, or the lid will develop. So there's going to be some higher activity sports, similar to Camp Sienna, again, some higher activity sports. There's going to be a lot of passive sport activities. So the 70 acres will just blend into that, sort of like the 50 or so acres that's in Camp Sienna. It's a trail that goes through that area. Any questions?
Well,
There is
so-
access, we are actually also dedicating access to that, if you, on that. So access dedication is part of that, part of the parkland dedication.
So we don't have to change the development agreement to get this do it piecemeal kind of thing, or is it?
We're beginning discussions, and it's early on in the discussions. But we are looking at whether or not that will be a major modification or a minor modification. If it's a minor modification, it gets done administratively. But the assurance is we will get our parkland.
So it's just more of a technical thing that was written into the contract that, in the latest amendment, right?
It was written to very closely track the terms of our ordinance. We're very comfortable that we will get the parkland and avoid them the unnecessary expense, although I do feel sorry for the surveyor who will be losing all of those jobs. But, I'm sure there's other work that we'll be sending the surveyor to do.
Yes.
Great job filling
Any
in.
other question?
Man,
I rehearsed for that.
Any other questions? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
Nancy said I can't because I said council earlier.
Okay. Well, this one does go to council, I believe.
I make a motion to send this to city council with positive recommendation.
Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Before you close, you have to convey best wishes to the commission. Don't leave us.
Oh, for
Just
Mr. Lee?
recovery
Oh,
from all of
okay.
us. Put it on
Yeah,
record.
so I guess we could give Mr. Lee our best wishes and that hope that he recovers as soon as possible.
We will communicate that.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, that was fun.
Good job.
You did a great job.
Wonderful
How are those
job.
allergies?
Yeah.
Killing me.
I don't know if we're gonna let him sit over there
Year.
anymore.
Oh, no, yeah.
That's right. You're going to be sitting in the back room next time.